I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's session, Mastering Change Management, Proven Strategies for AI and Beyond. Today's presenter is going to be Kruti Shah. She's a senior consultant here at Asterix. We're thrilled to have her today. Kruti, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Before we get into the content and the introduction to the speaker, just a brief background on Asterix. If you haven't been in one of our webinars in the past, we're glad to have you. If you're coming back again, we're glad to have you back again. But just a little bit about the company. Asterix is a consulting firm, and we work exclusively in the life sciences space, and we very much focus on the technology within certain areas of life science, especially on the R&D side, drug development, et cetera. And we've been doing this for the better part of 28 years. We work in a mode where we are not aligned to any one particular technology. We're technology agnostic. We come in and we help companies scope out the stack that they're going to need to grow and be successful. One of the things that we're very proud of is 90% of the staff here at Asterix holds advanced scientific degrees. So we're very much a science-based organization ourselves, helping other science-based communities. And again, have been doing it for better than 28 years now. So with that, let me introduce our speaker for today, and you go to the next slide, Kruti, and we'll get things kicked off. So Kruti is a seasoned life science consultant. She's got over 9 years experience delivering high impact IT and business transformation initiatives across a couple of areas: regulatory affairs, medical affairs, R&D, pharmacovigilance, clinical ops, and quality. With that, I'm gonna let Kruti go ahead and pick it up from here. I don't have to read her extensive background. It's very impressive. But you guys can kind of read that on, and Kruti, I'll let you pick it up. I'll come back on at the end and help with closing things out and help with questions. So Kruti, you have the floor.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Hello, everyone. My name is Kruti, and I am excited to present this webinar on Mastering Change Management. So today I'll be sharing some key insights and lessons learned from both AI and non-AI related projects that I have worked on in the pharmaceutical and biotech space. And don't worry if you're not from this particular industry. Change management principles are universal, and these strategies can be applied across many fields. So let's get started with the plan for today. As a part of this webinar, we will first start with a basic understanding of what is a change. And we'll also address some of the common blockers that I've seen quite often on these different projects. And then we are going to talk about the stepping stones for change. Later, we will dive deeper into each one of these stepping stones. And finally, towards the end, we will talk about some of the key things to remember for your organization, and then conclude with the questions and answers. A key thing to remember here is, each slide in my presentation today is crafted from my own experiences, along with the insights from my fellow Asterix team members who have led and contributed to multiple such transformation initiatives. The insights I'm going to share today are not just theoretical, but they also come from real-world challenges and successes. It's important to remember that the nature of every project is different. What I will be sharing today would be some of the guidelines and the best practices that work for us. All right then, let's get started with the basics. What exactly is a change? Change is all about ensuring a successful adoption of a technology or a process. There are some common misconceptions about change management that I would like to clarify today. One of the first common myth is that the project management and change management are the same. However, they serve different purposes. Project management is focused on, getting the job done, delivering the project on time, on budget, and within scope. That's what project management is. Whereas change management, on the other hand, is about getting people on board, helping those people, helping the end users understand, accept, and adapt to that change. Another extremely popular myth is that change management begins only when the change is ready to be pushed out to the users. This couldn't be further from the truth. Change management actually starts on day zero of any project and in parallel with project management. This parallel approach, ensures that not only is the project completed successfully, but the fact that people are actually ready and willing to adopt the new process or technology. Understanding these distinctions ensures that both project management and change management work hand in hand. And that's the synergy that will drive a project towards success. Now that we've debunked some of the common myths about change management, let's shift our focus to some of the common blockers around why a change could potentially fail. And before I bring up that list, I'm going to ask you a question, something to think about. Remember the last time your phone got a major operating system update? What did you feel about it? Like, what did you do? How did you feel about it? A lot of us may have installed it and are happily using these new features. Some of us may have looked up a couple of features online and are maybe using them regularly. A lot of us could still be struggling with the usability and are unsure of how to use them. I know I'm definitely one of those. A lot of us would have probably ignored it because, one, maybe we did not have the time to learn about it, or we just preferred an older version. These are some of the classic reasons or cases of the change failing due to resistance to adoption, poor communication. And sometimes, there isn't enough stakeholder or leadership buy-in. And then to add a cherry on the top, when you think of a change in the artificial intelligence space, there are some critical limitations to that. There are regulations, there is accuracy, quality, ethics, and whatnot. The list just goes on, right? In my presentation today, I'm going to address each one of these issues. Now, let's shift our focus to a more structured change management approach that has worked well in the past for me and for the other Asterisk team members. And in order to do that, I'm going to now step into some of the stepping stones for change. There is a mantra that I follow in my life and also on my change management projects, which is a successful change is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, but there are certain things that we can do to make that journey better. And to explain this journey, I'm going to now highlight 4 different stepping stones that, through my experience, are absolutely critical for implementing a successful change. And they are: first, plan and prepare. Do your groundwork. Before you even think about implementing or rolling out a new process or a technology, you must always assess the organization's readiness. Once you are ready with this kind of groundwork, that's when you build your foundations. Laying your foundations right is an extremely important thing to do, is because this piece ensures that you are solving the right problem with the right solution. The next stepping stone is iterate and optimize. This is the step where, we fine-tune our approach based on real-life feedback, ensuring that we are constantly improving before a full-scale adoption. Think of this step as constructing a building with a crane. We continuously adjust until everything fits perfectly. Now that the system or the processes are optimized, we then focus on the final stage, driving of the adoption. And in my presentation, I am going to talk about each one of these stepping stones in detail. And since we talked about the overall journey of change, let's get started with the first step, which is plan and prepare. Whenever you want to bring in a change, the first thing that needs to be done is assessing your organization's readiness. The unspoken rule over here is don't assume readiness. Before initiating any kind of change, one must always reflect on the past efforts. Learn about what has worked, what has failed, and if it did fail, ask why. You need to understand all of these things before bringing in a new change. Understand these points from your cultural perspective, your operational perspective, and also from your technical landscapes perspective. If you misread the organization's pulse, adoption is definitely going to suffer. The second thing that you need to do as a part of the first stepping stone is to conduct change impact analysis. So determine who and what will be affected, which teams, which processes, which systems will be affected. Understanding these would make sure that you are able to capture the resistance levels and potential roadblocks early on in your project. The next one is secure leadership buy-in and sponsorship. Establish a clear case for change with your defined business drivers, defined success metrics and KPIs. And now I'm going to, double click into this one specifically, and I would like to call out some of the learnings from my projects around this particular piece. Most of you may already know this, but one of the most popular ways to secure a leadership or a stakeholder buy-in is through drafting a business case. The reason I bring this up is because whenever someone is drafting a business case, one mainly focuses on the why, the what, and the how aspect. But what we usually forget is to emphasize on the why now aspect of it. The why now could be very different for different organizations. For an organization, it could be to bring a drug faster into the market. For another organization, it could be to stay competitive in the market. For someone, it could be to become a market leader. And for someone, it could be, to accelerate automation. You need to understand what your why now is. Understand which goal suits best for your organization. And also, while you're addressing your why now in the business case, I would like to share some of the guidelines using which you can enhance the way you bring that point to your leadership. The first one is speak their language. State facts. Leadership and stakeholders, they like to see the facts. They are interested in the numbers, right? While you are adding, your advantages of AI-driven technology, add numbers, add some numbers, some facts around it. Let them know that, it's not going to be, and it's not going to have like an immediate ROI. In certain cases, if needed, you can also call out what your competitors are doing and tie it to your business goal or your organization's goal. Tell them, why is it so urgent and why should we be doing it right now? The second piece is to set expectations. Be transparent and tell them that this won't be an overnight outcome. Let them know that initially there could be a temporary slowdown. There could be an increased need of resources because you will, of course, have to have someone to review an AI-produced content because it is still an emerging space. Let them know, be transparent about the fact that it is going to be an iterative approach. It's going to have like a feedback loop, and that is going to take some time. Also, don't forget to include the ever-changing world of AI regulations and compliance. So these are some of the very important expectations, to set with your leadership. That way, they're fully aware that it won't be an overnight outcome. And then the last one is to define your metrics early on. And think of these as like the starting point and not the end goal. You need to define your metrics early on and not once the system is ready to be rolled out to the users. And also, don't solely depend on the vendor numbers. You need to think about what these numbers would look like for your team and your organization, because only you know your team and your organization. So defining metrics is very specific to an organization. And of course, with these metrics, it's also going to be easier to assess the success of the project after the first iteration of implementation. right? Now, moving on to building the foundation. If you don't have a solid foundation, even the best plans can fail. So let's look at, how we can set ourselves up for success. The first step in building the foundation is to identify and analyze your stakeholders and your SMEs. Think about who are the decision makers, who are your end users, who will be the most affected by this change. You need to think about all of these before bringing in the change. Identify and analyze the subject matter experts, your end users, understand their perspective, understand their problems, think what are their major pain points. And it has happened to me so many times that while trying to understand the stakeholders or end users' perspective, we actually uncover potential points of resistance, which you can actually use to draft your communications. And once you understand your stakeholders, you must then always define your future state vision. You have to think about where are you headed as an organization and what does success look like for you. Define a clear future state vision. This vision must align with business needs and strategic objectives to ensure a long-term impact. The next one is addressing gaps and establishing requirements. With the vision in place, one must always look at the existing gaps. Too often, companies jump straight to selecting tools without fully understanding their needs, leading to misfit solutions. This brings us to a key takeaway, which is to avoid the technology first trap. Technology should serve the process and not the other way around. Too many organizations unfortunately rush to buy new tools without ensuring they fit their workflows. Instead, you must always design the right processes first and then select the tools that best support those processes. Once the foundation is set, you then step into the next stepping stone, which is iterate and optimize. Now, in my experience, this is one of the most challenging parts of all of these 4 stepping stones, which is why I'm going to go into detail of each one of these sub-bullets. Let's explore how these work, and starting with feedback-driven approach. And what do I mean by feedback-driven approach? Start with a foundational version of your solution and then share it with your champions or key stakeholders. Gather their feedback. Identify what works and what needs an improvement, and then refine it accordingly. And most importantly, repeat that cycle. This kind of a feedback-driven process ensures continuous learning. And I'm not saying that, you may not get lucky with the success in your first attempt. However, relying on that chance alone isn't a sound strategy in my experience. A key thing to remember here is to have champions and leaders whom the end users can trust. Think of champions and leaders as your first stakeholders promoting for a change that's coming up. They can actually create an impact and provide a very positive outlook to your end users or all your impacted users. And also, if needed, have them across all geographical locations or all applicable geographical locations. In one of the projects that I was on, they initially brought in like a leader who was relatively new in the company, and the trust was unfortunately missing. And the end users were, quite hesitant, and there was like a lot of back and forth. So we then suggested that, they should probably bring in someone whom they already trusted. And after a lot of discussions, they actually brought in a person who relatively had a better relationship with the end users. And guess what? The process went so much smoother. So yeah, think about, who are going to be your leaders fostering for that change, and also their relationship with the end users. Now that, we've discussed the importance of feedback-driven approach, let's dive into a crucial decision point in any kind of a rollout, which is the approach that you take. It is important to remember that a successful rollout must always align with your business strategy to create real impact. Choosing the wrong approach can lead to resistance, inefficiencies, or even failure. So let's break down the two main strategies, phased and big bang approach. What are they exactly? A phased rollout is ideal when the change needs to be tailored to a specific team, department, or a business function. On the other hand, a big bang rollout works best when the change applies uniformly across the organization. By rolling out in stages, you can onboard users more effectively, provide targeted training, and refine based on the real feedback before a full scale up. This approach enables immediate adoption, ensuring consistency and standardization from day one. A phased approach has a lower risk as issues can be identified and resolved before a full deployment. Big Bang, however, requires robust planning, robust training and support planning to mitigate the risks and ensure smooth implementation. The bottom line here is, if you're solving a specific or a niche problem, go for a phased approach. If you're solving or if you're trying to solve a generic challenge, go big bang. But remember, choose your approach wisely and align it with your business goals and not just the convenience. So the bottom line here is, give this a thought as well when you plan your rollout and your messaging, as this could be a potential game changer. And I will let you all take a moment to absorb this information while I take a quick breather. All right. Moving on to messaging. It is often said that messaging can make or break the success of any change. But what I have experienced, or we as an Asterisk team has experienced, is messaging can make or break any change. Not just the success of it, but it can make or break a change. Especially, when AI is involved. And the primary focus of the message should include the following two things. The first one is to address the end user's needs. Focus your messaging on them. Let them know that the change is for them. Address their challenges. Make sure or reassure them that this change is only going to support them. It's not going to replace them. The second piece is about leadership, is about adding leadership's commitment to your messaging. Let them know that leadership is aware of their problems and they are actively willing to resolve their pain points. And sometimes, you can also align the change with a long-term community goal. The bottom line here is, messaging goes beyond just telling people that there is a change. It's about showing them empathy. I'd like to share an experience with you all. So during one of my early change management projects, which I think was a pilot initiative, so the initial messaging failed to address the end user's concerns. As a result, the leaders faced significant pushback with the change, with the technology that they were trying to implement, as the users feared that that technology or that tool is going to replace their expertise. And unfortunately, leadership did not provide sufficient reassurance to the end users. And ultimately, what happened? the pilot failed. However, the team took this as a learning opportunity. We all as a team reflected on our approach, identified the gaps, and revamped our messaging to better resonate with the audience. On the next 2 slides, I'm going to share some real-life examples highlighting key comparisons between what worked and what didn't. Starting with example 1. On the left side, you see an overblown promise which says, this AI system will revolutionize everything and do all the work for you. Now, the problem with this message was it overpromises and it sets unrealistic expectations. So we changed our messaging to say something like this. With AI-powered content generation, you'll reduce repetitive tasks, improve accuracy, and free up time for strategic, high-value work. What worked for this message is it is highlighting the benefits clearly, and it also aligns with the user priorities. Moving on to example 2. On the left side, you see a message which says, the tool will replace the need for back and forth collaboration. Now, the problem with this message was it downplays teamwork and it also creates a fear of displacement. So we revamped our messaging to say something like this. AI-driven tools are here to work alongside you, making collaboration smoother while maintaining your creative control. And what worked for this message is, this message frames artificial intelligence as a supportive tool and it empowers the end users. It puts the end users in the center. So yeah, these are some of the examples that, that has worked well in the past for us. And I really wanted to share these examples with you. And now that, you understand, how to structure the rollout and the messaging and, the feedback-driven approach, let's move on to driving adoption. Let's roll it out to the users. And how to do that? Let's explore. From a change management perspective, bringing in a new system is not just about launching a system. It's about ensuring that the users understand and adopt the technology or the change effectively. And how can you do that? 1, by tailoring your training based on the type of system you have. For example, for simple systems, you will have to focus on, a quick, easy to flow materials that, users can self-learn. But for complex systems, you may need like detailed training programs with multiple sessions, frequently asked questions, structured user guides, and a lot of other things. The second thing that you need to do is to promote adoption. Your champions will drive the change by encouraging adoption, by sharing some best practices, and supporting teams in real-world usage. Whereas leaders will provide reinforcements. They will ensure that the system adoption is supported at all levels. The adoption doesn't end when you train the people and roll out the change. There is a need to continuously monitor and adapt. We cannot improve what we don't measure. Tracking some of the key metrics is definitely going to help you to assess adoption and its effectiveness. Monitor the engagement. Track whether the users are actively using the technology. If the adoption rates are low, you need to investigate why. Why are people not using the technology? Monitor the performance of the technology. Is the technology delivering the expected results? If not, you may need to do adjustments. Like why is the technology not delivering what was expected from it? And then also collect user feedback. Hear what your end users, your stakeholders, your champions, hear what they are saying. People like to be heard, and tracking these key metrics will give you real insights into what's working and what needs an improvement. Address the resistance that you hear and refine your strategy accordingly. Learn about who is struggling the most and why are they struggling. Update your training materials based on the feedback that you hear. Communicate your successes, highlight the wins, share best practices. This helps in building the momentum. And in order to do these two things, the two key players are going to be your leaders and your champions, so choose them wisely. And always remember, resistance is natural. It's okay. But success comes from listening, adjusting, and driving continuous engagement. To conclude my presentation, I'm just going to say one last thing, which is remember that the change is not limited to technology or process improvements. It's about the people, the collaboration, and having a shared purpose. And I would like for you all to reflect on the following two questions today. The first one is, are your people, processes, and systems aligned to adopt change and turn it into a competitive advantage? The second question, how are you ensuring that today's changes lay the groundwork for a sustainable and a scalable growth and innovation for tomorrow? I would give you all a couple of moments to think about this, and I hope that these questions spark ideas for meaningful transformation in your organizations. Thank you so much. I'll give you all a couple of moments just to think about these, and then we can move on with the questions and answers. Thank you so much.